Hello and welcome back to the podcast. Thank you for being here. I know you have so many things you can be listening to, but it means the world to me that you're here listening. And today I have an amazing guest. She is a business coach. Her name is Brenda Rigney, and I personally am in her community. And I am so excited to talk to her today and have her share her wisdom and her knowledge and her experience and her story. She is a coach for midlife women. And she says midlife women are the best leaders on the planet. So I'm excited to dive into this conversation with her. Welcome, Brenda, to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Linda. Thanks for having me. Thanks everyone for tuning in today too.
Oh, absolutely. So it took you 27 years of developing multi-million dollar brands and an earth-shaking divorce to finally go down the road to reset everything. Tell us a little bit about that, if you would.
Yeah, I mean, my story probably isn't dissimilar to maybe some people that are listening in, where it's just like you're just kind of going through the motions, you're going through life, and people are telling you you're doing all the right things, like, going to school, getting a job, getting married, get the house, the kids, the dog, like whatever, right? 2 vacations a year. Like, I mean, there wasn't really anything to sort of complain about or say that my life was terrible. And I could still be living that life today. But I think the big turning point for me was just I was physically not well, and I was mentally sort of checked out of relationships that I had in place at that point in time. Even as a mom, I look back on how I was a mom then to how I'm a mom now. I mean, obviously my kids have aged. They're, not as like, I'm not tying shoelaces and things like that, but I was just sort of going through the motions. And it wasn't until I think I know exactly when it was. I was at a retreat. I was actually hosting the retreat, and I was with my corporate organization at the time and one of the brands that I worked for. And we had brought in some outside speakers to take our executive team through a retreat. And we were off on one of the Gulf Islands outside of Vancouver. There's lots of islands here. And we were going around in these small little breakout sessions. And the question of the hour was, how do you know when you're happy? And I think I was like fourth in a, 8-person circle. And like, when it came to me, I was like, pass. Like, go to the next person. And the facilitator was just like, okay, it's not a hard question. And I'm like, no, it's a really hard question. Because I think I had been dodging it, not just in that retreat session, but I had been dodging it for a very long time in my life. I was happy when my kids were happy and settled. I was happy when my ex-husband, my kid's father, was like settled and happy. I was happy when my parents or my in-laws were doing their thing, when my team was doing well, when my boss was happy. Like, I was happy with all these other things that were going on in my life, but it was a cause to what other people were going through versus like what I was doing in my life to generate my own level of happiness. And like I said earlier, it was showing up in my health, it was showing up in my relationships,
Mm,
um,
it's
showing up
so,
like,
yeah.
and I eventually started showing up in things like my job. And I remember having a conversation with my boss, and she was like, I don't know if you're performing well in your job. And I was like, what? And I had been like, type A, like go, 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 top performer, getting the awards, getting the promotions. I just like worked really hard to get all those things in life. But I realized until you actually start working on yourself, some of those things just start like, it's hard to maintain it, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
like you just can't keep going.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of external things. So you personally were not happy because it was always your happiness was a result of all these things you couldn't control. And so
Yeah.
that's a giant self-awareness that you had. So is that what truly inspired you to transition from corporate to entrepreneurship? Was that moment?
It took me a couple of years because it was actually really scary. Like when I was at the retreat, again, I didn't want to answer that question. And we got through the circle. It was time to take a break, like a coffee break, and go get like a granola bar or something. I was like, thank God I don't have to answer this question. And then we came back and they're like, before we come back from the break, Brenda, like we want to make sure that you answer, or when we come back from the break, Brenda, we want to make sure that you answer this question. I was like, oh my gosh. So we're on the break. Everyone's chatting about how great that exercise was. I was on my phone in the corner trying to figure out when the next ferry was, like how to get off the island as fast as possible. So I didn't have to answer this question. I
Mm,
was going through a bit of a panic attack, and then I froze for probably about 2 years, and just kind of went back to doing what I was always doing because that had been a barometer for success. Like, just go back and work more, work harder. I ended up changing organizations and going to another company, thinking that would make things better, in my relationship at home, in my health, all that stuff. And it just made it worse. So, then it was just like, okay, I've tried all the things in my toolkit that I know of. I have to like restart some things. I have to kind of go back to school, but not like I have to go do an MBA or something. I have to like literally go back to like life school. Like, what is my life and what I want it to be? And at that point, it was like around 47. I was 47. So it's like, I don't want to be like doing this for another 20 years and thinking that this is normal and then retire from my corporate career. And, and the old adage of like, then people like have a heart attack on the golf course type of thing. I wanted to live until I was 100, but I knew I wasn't going to be able to do that on the course that I was on. So I had to do something drastic.
Wow.
And I decided to quit my job. And I was like, I'm going to take a year. At that point too, maybe like 6 months before I quit my job, we had told the kids that we were getting a divorce, but the divorce was just languishing. Like nothing was happening. We told the kids, and then it was like, even my lawyer was like, are you guys getting a divorce? Are you reconsidering? And I'm like, no, we're getting a divorce. Like everyone just thought we were getting back together. I'm like, no, we are, but we weren't doing anything about it. It was just kind of there.
Sitting there.
And so and being the operations person that I was, it's like, I need to like manage my divorce. If no one's going to do it, like if this doesn't happen, just because we've announced it, it's not going to happen. Like I actually need to project manage my divorce. I need to project manage myself, my health, like getting myself back on track. But I recognized that it was going to take me a while to do that. And I just decided to take a full year. So that was like my first time ever taking a gap year. I mean, most people do that in their like early 20s or something after university or between university and between high school and university. And I did it when I was like 48. I took a full year off. People told me like some of my closest friends and even my boss told me I was crazy. It was a career derailer. I had colleagues say like, how could you do this? Nobody like quits their job because they're going through a divorce and a midlife crisis. And I'm like, well, I am. Thanks for your support.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So that was the pivotal moment and that basically solidified your decisions was to start your own business while you were out for the year.
Yeah. I mean, I wanted to just take that full year. People were always asking me like, what are you going to do? You're going to go back to work. I had lots of calls from recruiters asking me to come into other organizations. And I was just like, thank you. I'll call you in a year if I want that. And if it's there, it's there. If it's not,
So
it's okay.
tell us where you went for the year because that sounds really amazing. Even though
Yeah, I went to 7 countries. One of them was Ethiopia. Like, so right away after I quit my job, it was in the fall of 80, no, like dating myself. When was it? The fall of 2017, I quit my job. And a coach of mine, a leadership coach, the one that was actually running that retreat 2 years later, she was taking a group of people to Ethiopia to help build a school in northern Ethiopia with an organization called Imagine One Day. And we had to fundraise money to go, like pay for ourselves, but also to donate to the school, to the building of the school. And we had to donate, I think, or fundraise like something like $13,000 US. I signed up late. Like everyone had like 3 months. I had 6 weeks to get my quota in. And I had never fundraised anything. I think the last time I had fundraised something or sold something that wasn't like somebody else's product. But like the last time I sold something was maybe when I was like in grade 12, like I had the rugby team fundraise for something like selling Christmas trees or something on a school lot. So I was like, okay, how do I fundraise? Luckily there was like the organization showed us a few things. They had built a website for us to be able to like collect the money and people to get their tax receipts. But I just basically put together 4 events and I was like, okay, we're just going to do this out of my home. And people donated somewhere between $5 to like $500. And it was great. I made my quota in 6 weeks, but it also taught me something in that moment that when I put out something into the universe that I believe in, people come forward and like they want to be a part of it. And it wasn't so much at that point like, oh, I'm going to start a business tomorrow, but it was just like, interesting. Could I do more of that? Could I do that in other ways? Like it was kind of like the first lesson in that journey in my gap year. And then it was just putting myself in situations. People, some people say, hey, we're going to go here. Do you want to do that? And in the past, it would have been excuse after excuse after excuse. So really just, unleashing sort of that risk taking, not to the point of like detriment. I was still a mom. I still had responsibilities, but it was just more about doing things that I had never done before because I always had some obligation or some reasoning why I couldn't do that, some justification. And so pushing myself outside of that comfort zone. So it was a time of learning. I did go back to school. I did my board certification, traveled to 7 countries, got my kids and I established in a new home, which was really important for me. I didn't want them starting that school year in the fall, like living between Airbnbs and things like
Mm.
that. I wanted us like to have a home. And then it was time for me to start thinking about what I would do next. And I actually had a friend of mine, a colleague that I knew from my corporate days, who had gone off and she was now a consultant. She came to me and said, hey, you know what, we're taxed right now. We can't take on any new clients, but there's a client that you'd be perfect for. And I think with your experience, you guys would get along and you should just do it. And I met with a client. I worked with them for 6 weeks and I made $30,000 in 36 weeks
Wow. And what were you doing?
consulting with them. And it was just doing what I was doing before as a COO. So I think that just, again, kind of like, okay, if I just put that out there, there are people that actually want to work with me in this capacity. And it allowed me, like, I made $30,000 in 6 weeks, working like 20, 25 hours a week,
Okay.
which, the flip side is I could have done that in my corporate days, but working 70 hours a week and just burning myself out and excessively overweight and all these things that were sort of like imploding in my life. So
Mm.
it just sort of showed me something, a model that was possible. I still, at that stage in like 2018, when I was on my gap year and these little lessons and these little tests that were coming my way, I still didn't necessarily have like a business model yet. I still didn't know like, okay, how do I get this on repeat? Is this just a fluke? So I was still in that sort of curiosity phase.
Okay. So what truly inspired you to start your own business, the entrepreneurship?
Well, I think that,
The-
with that example with like working with that client for 6 weeks. So, I finished off my gap year though. I stuck it out until the end of December. And then in early January, I launched a one-to-one coaching service.
Nice.
And I just basically, I didn't have anything. I didn't have a website. I didn't have business cards. I just used my personal Gmail account. I didn't even have like a brendarigney.com account. And I just emailed everybody that I knew and said, hey, I'm doing this 5-week one-to-one coaching program. This will be the result. And
Wow.
I had like, I think 15, 20 people sign up. And I was like, okay, I'm on my way. Let's go.
Oh my goodness. I love it. So let's see, many midlife women feel stuck in corporate but are afraid to take the leap. What advice would you give them?
Uh, I think the biggest thing that I see, and I went through this myself, is I think you feel like you need to have like the business model all set up. Like it's kind of like, oh, I have to go to the bank with my business proposal and, present all the facts. Like I have pivoted my business 3 times in the last 6 years. Is that too much? Maybe. Is it too little? I don't know. But when I talk to various entrepreneurs, there are people that have, pivoted multiple times. So I think don't start your business with like perfection in mind. Like if you just have a hunch about what you think you would do, again, if I was to break it down for anybody, I would always say, look at some core things, like what are the things that you're really good at, your skills, your talents, your abilities, and get really clear on those things. Like if you're awesome at bookkeeping, well, start a bookkeeping business. Like that is just a natural way because then it's just, what to ask for, how to deliver on those services. You can meet those client expectations because you know what the work looks like. Or think about your passions, your beliefs, your values, like what is important to you, because that will help narrow down the type of people that you want to work with. Do you want to work with people that are new to bookkeeping services and like don't know what that requires, or people that have expertise working with a bookkeeper and they're expecting, X, Y, and Z from you? So get really clear on that. And then I think it's also your own experiences, your past, your present, and soon to be future that you look at. Like for me, it was like I wanted to design a business that also allowed that flexibility. When I saw that I could make $30,000 in 6 weeks, working 20, 25 hours a week, being a single mom and getting that travel bug in there, because in my gap year, I traveled to 7 countries. I was like, I don't want to lose that momentum. Although COVID kind of gave me a little bit of a wrench there, but I didn't want to lose that momentum on what I was sort of starting with. So it's like, how could I create that for myself too? Because my experience before in working was working 70 hours a week. And that was like a symbol of success. How could I invert that model to be doing 20, 25 hours a week? So I think once you can figure out those things, like what am I good at? What am I known for? And, what's my experience or experiences that I want to create? Then you can actually start figuring out what that business is. But I think that's something that's really important versus like, oh, I have to find the perfect business model. And then I have to work myself to that. Like I've seen a lot of women go, okay, I need to be this. And so now I have to go get 20 certifications to go be that.
Yeah.
Versus I think in midlife at 40, 50, you already know so much.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you that your statement about midlife women know so much or can do so much or whatever. What is your saying? Yeah. Um,
We're already leaders.
as the best leaders on the planet. Yeah, the best leaders on the planet. So why do you say that? And yeah, and then yeah.
Well, first of all, it's like I started learning about leadership and management when I was 21 years old. I started working for the Gap as an assistant manager in training. They taught me everything about how to lead and manage people and get the best out of people and production mode, all that sort of stuff. But it was a great foundation. But the reality is once you get to kind of midlife, I mean, like think about all the things that we juggle in our midlife. Like some of us are parents, some of us are, caring for aging parents. We have businesses. We have responsibilities in our community. We might be fundraising. We might be volunteering at our church or other like foundations. Like we're doing multiple things.
Yeah.
If our friends call us, we help them out. We're managing all these things. Back in my 20s, like that's leading and managing people. But a lot of times women don't actually have titles of leadership because of whatever, our upbringing, our schooling, our education, our work experience. So we don't think of ourselves as being leaders, but we're actually already demonstrating those leadership abilities.
Yeah.
So why not go into business for yourself
Yeah.
and do the things that you already know how to do? Because there are 8 billion people on this planet and literally somebody needs what you've got.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you help your clients cultivate confidence and resilience in the new chapter? Because it doesn't success, not everyone's going to make 30K in 6 weeks like you did.
No.
So
And that was a bit of a fluke. I like when I started my coaching business, I had to then go, from the ground up and put in those systems, those processes. So confidence to me is, yes, I mean, a lot of the things I think that you do when you talk about empowerment and getting clear about your vision, your values, your goals, I think are really important because then you've got that foundation for making decision making. I think a lot of times we are taught to make decisions like, yes, we can make decisions from our gut, but we also are taught to make decisions based off of somebody else's perspective, right? Somebody else's value system, even if that's family beliefs or religious beliefs, could be even organizational beliefs. Because I started in business so young, a lot of the sort of business beliefs that I have about how to make money or how to communicate with people are based off of those organizations I worked with. Because I was so young and impressionable, I just like took on those value systems. But I think at some point or another, whether or not you're doing this in your 20s, when you're kind of leaving the family home, or you're doing it at midlife, when you're recognizing some of the things that I've like went through, is getting clear on those, what is the vision that you want to have for your life, and that your business is a part of it, but it's not like you're just going from corporate to business. It's like, this is an opportunity to check in with what's important around your relationships, your health, your wealth, so that when you're designing that business, it's actually complementing it.
yeah.
And then from a confidence standpoint, yeah, there's going to be rainy days in your business. Yeah, you're not going to get the income you want coming in on a Friday by 5 o'clock. But if you're doing all the things that link into that vision, that enough is like enough for me to have the confidence that I'm doing things right. It's not, am I doing it wrong or right? I should correct myself. It's more about I'm doing things in alignment with my vision, my values, and the goals that I set out for myself. And my timing might be a little bit off, but that's okay. And it's just, getting clear on what those things are so that every day I'm making choices and decisions around those things.
Amazing. You've built an incredible community that I'm a part of, Aligned
Thank
AF. You have, and it's, now over 150 women strong. What inspired you to create the space, and what kind of transformations have you seen inside the Aligned AF community? Like, is there a
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, I want to say thank you for being a member, and you're really an active member. You're up to like level 6 on our leaderboard. You're like one of the top 3 members in there. You're always providing tons of great insight, asking questions, and also just like chiming in and giving your comments to people. And you're very like encouraging and insightful for all the other members. So thank you for being in there. I think the big thing for me is actually like during COVID, like I was, coaching and I was pivoting my business and dealing with all the things and social distancing and not traveling and wearing masks and being like a good citizen that way. But, there were reports coming out around what was happening with companies in the job market. And you were starting to see things. So like, obviously COVID kind of hit North America between like March, it was around spring break for us in Canada here. But like between, March and May, we're all in this sort of quandary about what was happening. So things were up in the air over the summer, but then we started seeing reports coming out in September, 450,000 women leaving their corporate job because they couldn't handle having kids at home because daycares were being closed. They couldn't handle the job, caring for aging family members, all these things that were coming to a head. The social systems that women count on in order to juggle all the things that we've got going on in our life.
We're shut down.
Like in order for a woman to actually hold down a full-time job, and especially any women in in positions of leadership where they've got multiple responsibilities in organizations, they depend on those social systems. And when all of those things were clamping down, the only thing that they could do was quit their job, because they'll do that. Like women will do that. If again, a neighbor is sick, if we have to stay because our kids are sick, we will do that first. So it started in September. I was seeing stats coming out of the US Labor Department, 450,000 women quitting their job, done. I was like, what? And then October, 500, it was just like, it was growing, another 500 and something. November, 600. And I was just like, where are all these women going? And they're staying at home. Yes, some of them were able to pivot. They got some subsidization and then start their own business. But I was like, that's a major brain drain on our economy, in organizations. And I'm thinking about my mom and me, like working and you like working in those like corporate environments and building up organizations and getting into positions of leadership. I was like, who's going to be mentoring my daughters when they're coming out of high school and going into the workplace? So that was sort of foundationally what was happening in my thought process. I was seeing all these women leaving and I'm like, where are they going? What's going to happen to them? That's going to impact our economy. That's like our intellectual property, like all these people that have all this great knowledge. And so for me, it was like, how do we get more women into entrepreneurship? And it needs to be accessible. The other stat that I was really aware of, and it hasn't even moved the needle, but less than 2% of venture capitalist funding goes to women-led businesses. So 98% goes to male-led businesses, which is the same old story.
Crazy. Yeah.
And there are amazing women-led businesses out there, like, the lady that developed Spanx and look at all those brands, right? And it's just like they scrounged to get funding and women are still scrounging to get funding.
That's right.
And, you hear these stories like they have to go back and back and back for more interviews with VC investors, whereas men like, go for lunch and get their funding check. And it's just, so for me, it's like, how do we just make entrepreneurship more accessible for women so that they have choices, that they're not necessarily having to rely on that corporate employer to kind of figure out their life, but they can actually lead it themselves.
Incredible. So what kind of transformations have you seen, or what's like can you share a success story that stands out to you of somebody in your community, maybe from the beginning that maybe, is there anything?
Yeah, I would look at yourself. I would look at like, there's tons of members right now where it's like, we're talking more about creating, those evergreen businesses. And even like right now in the community, we've got a lead generation event going on. We've got our Aligned AF community bundle and 35 plus members have contributed to the bundle. They've all put in their freebie. And for some members, like it was like, as soon as we announced that we were doing it, they were like, great, here's my freebie. And they got it in like within like the first week that we asked for submissions. And others were like, I've never done this before. We have to build this. Oh my gosh, like, what does this look like? The technology, the process, and they did it. And so to me, that is huge. Like that, some people might be listening going, well, that's not really a transformation. That's just like, hiring. Well, no, but they did this themselves. They're building their business. They're building their systems. If they didn't have this before, they've been out there kind of like hustling for sales, getting on sales calls all the time, doing live launches.
So much value. Yeah, you have so much value, so much information in there that's so helpful. I mean, just, within the shortest time, I transformed my Instagram and just, it was incredible. So yeah, I do find, yes. And so let me ask you a couple more questions. How has building that community shaped your entrepreneurial journey? Like, how has that, affected your journey? Because I know it's kind of exploded now, but like initially, and I mean, it's the whole entrepreneurial journey is a self-discovery journey, kind of like when you went for a year and did your self-discovery, right? It's the same, almost a different form. So how has the community growing and all that, like, have you had any personal, has it shaped you in any way? Just be
Yeah, well, I mean, here's one of the things that it's actually really, really fresh, and I'll share it with you. And I'm going to be doing some posts about it. I'm also going to do a podcast about it. But I've realized right now, and this sounds so funny for me, and it still feels really awkward to say it, but I'm actually really bored right now. And so the community is thriving. Like you said, I love it. I love all the memberships that are coming in and hearing about their businesses and the fact that we can create systems, tools, training to help these members like get from A to B. And so that's like hugely fulfilling. My kids are like out living their life, doing their thing. Like, I'm like hearing from my daughter that, she lives in Montreal and the pipe wasn't working in the bathroom and she's been calling her landlord for weeks to try and fix it. And then she went on YouTube and went to the hardware store and got a wrench and fixed it herself. And I'm like,
oh,
okay, like I'm done. Like, okay, I'm not needed there anymore. She's totally like independent. And then my partner, Scott, he's actually in Peru right now, taking his daughters on a really cool trip and they're going through the Amazon. And I'm here like by myself with my dogs. And I'm just like, okay, I'm bored. Like I need a hobby. And this has never happened before because whether it's been in my corporate days or building up my business, it's just been go, go, go. And again,
yeah.
juggling the things. But I'm at midlife now where, I mean, you've got an adult child, you can probably like relate to what I'm saying, is I'm just coming into this dawn of like being an empty nester, having more flexibility. I've built this evergreen business for myself where it's like I wake up and someone has just joined the community and I didn't have to go on a sales call to talk to them. And it's just really fluid. So I'm actually writing a post today about this, about like, I think I need to get a hobby. I think I need to take up golf. Like, I just need, like, I need something to now be.
And I noticed because I'm like, you are always sending, I'm like, oh my God, it's over. Like there's so much information, like a new class, a new this. I'm like, whoa, she must be sitting there bored to death. Let me start a new. No,
Well, those things come like, those are part of like, kind of like the master plan for the membership. But I think for myself personally, yeah. So I think like that is something that I want to explore more. And also for members in the community is like, how can we build these businesses where we actually then have like
free
so
time.
much free time in our day that now we're bored and we can take on different things that we never thought we could. Like, oh, maybe I always wanted to take up knitting or
Maybe
golf or,
I see you doing like jazzercise and becoming an instructor just for fun, not for the money, but like you're going to go and work 2 mornings and 2 evenings or whatever. I mean, if you can remember the routines, because I became a Zumba instructor here, certified, and as soon as I was like, I can't even remember one song. How am I going to remember all these routines? And now I do jazzercise,
yeah.
which
Well,
I
I
love.
was actually thinking about taking swimming lessons. So it's like for me, I'm gonna like talk about this more as like, okay, how like I know how to do it, but I think I actually got excited last night, sort of brainstorming about learning how to play golf. And it's like I'm gonna get because I've invested so much in all the business coaches and all the business mentors and like hiring people for my
Yeah.
team. Like
So
I'm
like
gonna
fun.
hire a golf instructor and I'm gonna like literally be, and I've played golf before, but I'm gonna like just be enthusiastic beginner. I'm gonna like go practice at the driving range. I'm gonna, and then I'm also thinking, so exciting. I could like sign up for, a foursome with somebody that I didn't, with a group of
Yeah.
women that I don't know. And
Yeah. It's a
so
good
anyway,
problem to
I
have.
get excited about
My
that.
opinion. It's a great problem to have, in my opinion, to
Yeah.
that you're bored or that you have time to yourself, time to do stuff. I would just,
Yeah.
yeah,
And I think that's kind of coming to like the peak of where you want to be. And some people might say to me, like, I've had a business coach and I mean, well, you just need to like scale your business more. And I'm like, or go get a hobby, right? Like I don't have to be working in my business all the time.
yeah, absolutely. Tell us about the X podcast. You have a podcast, and what made you start that, and what impact do you think it's had? I just listened to it the other day. You were talking about the evergreen, like you're always giving powerful tips, but
Thank
what,
you.
yeah, share about the X podcast.
Yeah. So, well, actually, I started the podcast during COVID, and it was called something else. It was called The Three Uniques because I had this whole model, which I kind of talked a little bit about before, about your experience, your values, your vision, and your purpose, and then also your skills, talents, ability. So I'd interview people around their three uniques. And then about 2 years ago, I shifted it because I really wanted to focus in on midlife women. I call it the X because it was like Generation X, but it's not necessarily about women that are in the Generation X like time span as far as birth, and it's more midlife women. But I'd love to go behind the scenes into women's businesses and hear how they got started, like similar to the questions that you're asking me today. And also hearing about their offers and like how they get those out in the world and how they can share and, help them promote and share those offers with other people, obviously in my community and my network. But yeah, essentially it's to go back in behind the scenes. And then when I do solo episodes, I'm always talking about things that are going on in my business, things that I'm thinking about, things that I'm seeing inside the Aligned AF community with members that I know will help other business owners out there when they listen to the podcast.
And you also exchange with members. You'll do podcast swaps, you do live swaps, you do
Love doing swaps.
Yeah, you're awesome like that. That's so great.
Yeah.
There was something you said that I wanted to bring up and I lost my train of thought. That's what happened.
Yeah, I know.
I know. I'm going to ask this question. Do you have different beliefs now, like with all of your knowledge and wisdom and experience and being an entrepreneur today, would you have done things differently when you were in your 20s? Or do you have different beliefs now, like how you were taught to check these boxes and do all these things? Like now, if you were talking to your younger self, is there something you would say differently? I'm curious.
Yeah. I mean, I look back because there was probably a point in time too when I was coming off of my maternity leaves. I had my kids kind of back to back. They're 18 months apart. And so there was a time where I wasn't working for about a year and a half. And just through my maternity leaves and kind of getting through that period, that I did start doing some consulting work, and I probably should have stuck with it. So that would have been in my mid-30s. And I should have just, whatever that expression, bite the bullet and just like stuck it out. But I think now it's just so much easier to start a business, like within the online space. I mean, back then, I think the internet was around, but it was just like not to where it is today. And we didn't have things like social media, and we'd never have podcasts or YouTube channels or anything like that. So I can't even imagine how I would start it up. It would be a lot of more grassroots things like going to networking events, a lot of in-person events. So I think I love the fact that I'm starting it now, because the whole idea about what we just talked about, like being bored, it's like I could spend my time doing tons of networking events, meeting up with people face to face, but I've chosen to build this online digital business where I can be virtual. I can generate revenue without having to actually be face to face with people.
Right.
So I don't know if I would want to start it in my 20s, just based off of where technology was back then. But I would say that there were times where I would, just lean in. I would have probably coached myself in my 20s to say, this isn't the only thing. Like, look at other options, meet other people, explore things.
Right. But your leadership background has served you very well.
Yeah. I mean, I would never, I say this all the time, like my foundational years, like working for the Gap organization, Gap Inc., because I worked for all the brands like Gap, Old Navy, Banana Republic. I moved around with them. I was with them for 15 years. Like, I would never trade that experience. It was phenomenal.
Yeah. And you were like a manager in your early 20s, right?
Yeah, I was running one of the highest volume stores in Canada when I was 23. I had like 200 employees working for me. My dad, I remember coming in one day, like during the holiday season over like Christmas, and going, what the hell? He's like, I've been running my own business for years. It's like, you are like doing like handstands around me. And it was a really great time to join the brand at that point. I mean, Gap has gone through lots of changeovers and stuff, but at that time it was just really empowering. They did an amazing job training people. We had like the best people coming in, like Marcus Buckingham would talk to us at our annual meetings, and like we'd have like great speakers coming in. They definitely walked the talk as far as developing young leaders in the business. And it worked. They stuck around. They were there for years.
Yeah. And you also had a great foundation with your parents, right? And your grandma or something.
Yeah. And, I mean, I would never knock that for anything. And that's where I think, like, when I reached that point in my midlife where I made that drastic change to change my corporate career, and so many people were saying, like, you're being either selfish or you have so much to be grateful for. And I did. And I don't want to knock that, because some people didn't have that upbringing or that schooling or that opportunity to get in a company at the ground level and have that success early in their career. And yet I want the message to be about, and you can also change that. So
Tell us about your spiritual beliefs, just because this podcast, we always talk about spiritual awakenings, and we talk about, higher power? And, what is have you always had a higher power that you believed in your whole life, or?
Well, I was raised to be Anglican United. My family origins are from Ireland, Ukraine, Scotland. So we have a lot of like Ukraine would be like similar to Russian Orthodox, and so Catholicism, and then Irish Catholic, devout Irish Catholic. But as our family settled in Canada, we just went to the church that was close by. And so my family later adopted more of an Anglican or United Church faith. So I went, I was baptized and went through all the steps, Sunday school, all those things. But I got to a point too when I was probably about 14, 15, where I chose the church of skiing. Like I live in Western Canada and like there's great ski hills, and it was a choice of going skiing on Sunday mornings or going to church. And I know I kind of rocked a few episodes with my parents or with my grandparents around those conversations, but it was like not showing up to church and going like, where's Brenda? It's like, well, she's out skiing again. So I think probably in my early 20s, I moved away from it. But there's moments because I love to travel. So I have an obsession with Gothic churches. When I go into Gothic churches in Europe or in Central or South America, I definitely gravitate to it. I know all the stories. And, it's actually served me well, like being spiritual that way. But I guess I wouldn't necessarily say that I practice like a specific doctrine. I don't follow necessarily an organized religion. But spiritually, I mean, for me, it's about nature and connecting in with nature. When I'm out in a walk, trying to find, where the next group of orcas are or sea lions and connecting in with that, being very concerned about the environment and what we're doing. I think those are sort of practices. And then, I've learned about different indigenous practices, right, that are rooted in some things that like Western culture has adopted either through yoga or EFT tapping, but knowing that they're origins from places in South Asia. So
Wow. So EFT originated in I didn't know that.
well, it's a form of acupuncture, right?
Oh,
So
right.
Chinese medicine,
Oh,
ancient
yeah,
Chinese
it is.
medicine, and yeah, and yoga obviously has been like fully commercialized in the Northern Hemisphere, but obviously originates in South Asia. And, even going to India and spending time in India and spending time on an ashram and learning about sort of origins of yoga and how it's just like babies are taught it, right?
Yeah, yeah. So, how would you define success now compared to when you were in the corporate world?
Uh, Well, I say success now and then say maybe success a year from now. So success now is getting out at 4 o'clock to do a dog walk with my partner, Scott. Like that is just like ultimate success for me. So then just knowing that when I leave and I go and do my walk, it's like, it's the best for me. And also spending time with Scott, who's my life partner, um, is amazing. A year from now, it's going to be my golf game, I guess. Like, like how's my golf game going? But success in corporate would have been how much money I'm making, how my team is doing, did we get acknowledgement at the last like corporate junket, those type of things, right? And I can't even remember those accolades anymore.
Yeah.
So
Is there anything that you do on a daily habits or rituals that help you stay focused and empowered as an entrepreneur?
yeah, I mean, the first thing is recognizing my body has changed so much. So the fact that I'm running a business while I'm going through menopause. So I don't take calls before 10 o'clock. I'd really try and monitor that. It wasn't always that case. Like when I first started my business, I would sort of adopt that same corporate schedule. It's like, oh, work 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. And so now it's like my optimal times of working is sort of like 10 to 2. That's kind of like when I like to work. And so that's just me recognizing my body. Anything too early. It's not that I'm not up early. I'm doing things like working out. I love my Peloton. I love walking with a weighted vest. I'm really concerned about my eating, not concerned as an obsessed with it, but my family has a history of type 2 diabetes and I'm pretty much inclined to get that. So I'm monitoring my glucose levels and just really conscious of like the foods that I'm eating, moving away from a lot of packaged manufactured foods, going back to more whole foods, cooking my own things. Yeah. And just like what I consume, right? Like who I'm around and what I consume is like the most important thing.
Amazing. So let's see. I have all these questions. I don't know.
Yeah, I love them.
Something about your journey that people don't often see or hear about.
my journey that they don't often see and hear.
I'm also
Uh,
curious, how long were you single after the divorce to
mm,
your new man or the man you live with that you're
yes. So, okay, well, let's talk about the divorce. So sometimes that people don't always see and hear about is, and I don't know how we always sort of talk about this. I did actually talk about it on a podcast once with somebody who specializes in divorce coaching and working with women to navigate, co-parenting, is the skill that's required in co-parenting when you've got kids still obviously young and splitting time and all that sort of stuff and expenses. Because it's one thing, I think, to kind of decide that you're going to get a divorce, then it's the divorce. Then it's the grief of being divorced. Then it's like, oh my gosh, I actually have to co-parent. But you're actually co-parenting if you are a parent, if you have kids in the relationship, you're actually co-parenting through all of it. But somewhere in there, like you're on autopilot and you're just sort of functioning and you're numb and you're kind of going through all these stages of grief. But then you realize, actually, no, now I actually have to co-parent with you. And I have to co-parent with you until probably they're about the age of like 24. And then it's just like, and my kids aren't there yet. They're encroaching that space, but it's just like, oh, like how long do we have to do this for?
yeah.
And I'm just like, I'm saying to my kids, like, don't get married young, because then like your dad and I'll have to see each other again. But I joke. But
That's
I think that's been something behind the scenes as I like run my business where it's like co-parenting with, your ex. And you want to surround yourself with people that lift you up, etc. And we've tried, I think, to build like a good relationship and something that's like sort of functional so that obviously the kids are first. But there are times where you have to like, you're constantly navigating where it's like, okay, that feeling of like whatever pain point that was in our marriage when we were together comes up again when we're debating about whether or not someone should go to summer camp or get a new pair of jeans or things like that. And it's just like, oh, do we have to go back there again? So I think that's always been, I'll probably write about that maybe in an email, just like,
mm-hmm.
uh, it's something that maybe we don't talk about as much as business owners. And I don't necessarily share that, partly because it's also about my kids, right? I don't necessarily like to talk about my kids and what's going on with them. And I also have respect for my ex. He's got stuff about me too, right? I don't necessarily want to disparage him or have it come across as being disparaging, because I do want to make sure that that relationship is protected. But at the same time, it's been something that, yeah, like behind the scenes, as I'm like trying to go through a live launch, like, I don't know, I'm dealing with this like co-parenting situation. So I think that's always been in the background that people don't necessarily see about or hear about.
Right.
And then connecting with Scott. So yeah, I guess the divorce got finalized in 2018, and Scott and I met in 2020 during COVID. It was like 2 years later. But we didn't move in together until this past year. So we're in 2025. So we moved in together in 2024. So we had a long distance relationship for about 4 years, because
Wow.
I lived in Vancouver, in downtown Vancouver at the time, and he was on Vancouver Island. So it was a 90-minute ferry ride.
Mm.
And during COVID, sometimes there'd be lockdowns where we had to protect the island. Like we didn't want COVID to rampage to the island. So it's like you couldn't come over. They'd have like lockdowns. Only residents of the island could take the ferry and go back and forth to Vancouver. But mainland people couldn't come over for like, there was one stretch, I think for 7 weeks, we didn't see each other. So
Wow. And you guys met online, right? I think you told me that.
we met online and it was just a fluke. We were on one profile or one platform, and my algorithm was set to like a 25-kilometer radius. We deal with kilometers instead of miles and because I didn't want to like drive a long distance because I had kids at home, and I was like, if I'm going to meet up for somebody for a cup of coffee, I just want it to be like around the corner. I don't want to meet anybody that's like 2 hours away or something. But he was in Vancouver on business. And so I guess the algorithm reset while he was in Vancouver on business. And so then we started chatting and we met up. And then I found out that he was actually from Vancouver Island. I was like, oh, all right, we'll figure it out. I like you. We'll see if this works.
Oh, I love it. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I decided to move here last year when my youngest graduated from high school and moved away for university.
Nice. Did your ex find anyone?
Yeah, yeah, he's found somebody around the same time that I met Scott. That was kind of ironic. So the kids were kind of like meeting new people around the same time.
And what are your girls, what are they doing with their lives? Just curious. Like, what are they going for? What are their dreams, desires?
Yeah, my eldest, she's at McGill University in Montreal in Eastern Canada, and she's really passionate about PR, communications, in fashion, something in like art. She's very much on the artistic side. She's a great writer, very much into like style and design herself. But I think she sort of looks at it not necessarily like creating fashion, but being on the PR, marketing, communication
Right.
side.
Expressing herself through. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So she's, looking at those things, getting an internship with a communications company this summer, and she's living it with her girlfriends. They've got a like amazing house. They met in residence. They're going into their third year in the fall, and they've already got their new house. And yeah, it's just like awesome. Like they're in downtown Montreal, which is like a vibrant city and tons of fun things to do. It's like a little mini Paris. And
Yeah. I
um,
was there. I was in Montreal and Quebec in 2016, the summer, August 2016, right after my,
it's fun.
yeah, it's beautiful there.
Yeah, it's a really fun city, and I love going back to visit her. And then my youngest, she went to school in Switzerland. So she's finishing off her first year in Switzerland. And then she's going to be coming back to Canada and going to school in Halifax, which is also on the East Coast. So in the Maritimes.
What does she want to do?
She wants to be a writer for sure. Both of them are really strong at writing, kind of like their mama. And she wants to be a writer, but probably more either there's like kind of three pathways. Either she'll go the academic and actually go all the way up to becoming like a professor and like be an English professor or something like that. Like she could see herself doing that. She could also see herself being a screenwriter, writing novels. So
Oh, wow. Love it. Love it so
hmm.
much. And they adjusted with the divorce pretty good. They were resilient, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, you know what? I think it was just a lot of communication. For me, it's like, again, it goes back to really, I owe it to that communication and management and leadership development that I got in those early stages at the Gap. It was like, I think a lot of times parents think they're doing what's best for kids as far as like keeping the bad news, well, we don't want to hurt the kids or get the kids too focused on the divorce. We'll just handle it over here. And I was very much about like, let's just keep talking about it. Let's keep talking about it. So when they would come back to, when they would come back to my place, and it wasn't about talking about what was going on at dad's house and how they liked things or didn't like things, not like a gossiping, venting session, but just like keeping the space open
Mm,
and, and not necessarily initiating it, but just being present for it. And I knew that every time they would come to my place, like on Fridays, that would be our switch off day. Or sorry, Sundays would be our switch off day, that yeah, like just know that Sunday, Monday, Tuesday would be sort of those days to like
adjust.
decompress, to
Yes.
debrief. And like I just had to make sure that I was accessible. Like if I had like a Monday night meeting, they'd be like through the roof, but I was like, nope, Monday, Tuesday, it's just all about you girls and like what's going on with your life. And I mean, they were also young, but going into teenage, so things were happening, boys, fights with friends, didn't make the volleyball team, like their stuff, right? And it was just like making time for that. So, but I think what I ended up doing was working on myself, right? That was the big thing. Like by taking that gap year, I went through like a meditation certification. So I learned about meditation and my own breath and just how to calm myself so that when they were going through their stuff, which they needed to go
Cool.
through as
Yeah.
teenagers,
You
I
had,
wasn't like so consumed with mine.
yeah. And you also had tools to give to them to help them,
Yes.
right? Yeah. Oh,
Oh
that's
yeah, that was huge. Yeah, yeah. We used to practice like EFT and meditation because they'd be stressed about something, stressed about studying for an exam, stressed about their boyfriend breaking up with them. And I was just like, I didn't want it to be like, oh, it's about me and my stuff that was going on all the time. I needed to make sure that I was still giving them tools to support
yeah,
them.
that's amazing. Yeah, we do the best we can with, what we have, and you seem to have had a lot of good, and you were transparent, and kids are resilient, but that's amazing. So let's see, what else? Tell us a little bit about the Aligned AF community and the benefits of it for women that are transitioning from corporate to entrepreneurship.
Yeah, absolutely. So the community is definitely for women that are making that transition or like, where do I begin? Where do I start? So you get the training, you get the tools, the templates, the foundational pieces to help you build a sustainable business where you can see that recurring revenue that comes in. We talk about creating a signature offer. We talk about creating freebies so that you can start building your email list so that you don't have to get on sales calls all the time. So sometimes people are like, well, are you a coach? In those situations, I would say I'm more of a trainer, right? Like you need to get the foundational pieces, like the ABCs, the recipe on how to build these things. And then there are opportunities for coaching where we bring in, say, guest mentors, or I might have an office hour, or you can sign up for coaching based off of the levels, going through the leaderboard, because we want to give those rewards to people as they're engaging and participating in the community. But foundationally, it's about training tools and templates. And then the other layers are about actually putting those things into practice. So I mentioned earlier that we've got this Aligned AF bundle going on right now. We're going to have a summit in June. So we're creating actual lead generation events for members to get involved in, because I don't want it to just be a community that talks about building your business, but we're actually, for people that are listening and not seeing, had like a little mouthing, like I've joined lots of memberships or masterminds in the past where we talk about doing all these things, and then members walk away with this monster to-do list of having to do it all on their own. And I want it to be like, no, we're going to build it together, and then we're actually going to cross the finish line together on some things. So by creating these events, it actually allows members to see if I put these things in place, I actually can start seeing my business take some traction, versus, oh, I signed up for this course or I signed up for this membership and now I have to go away and do all this on my own.
Right, figure it out. Yeah, you have
Yeah.
so much. Yeah, so many training um videos and different things. Are you still doing the office hours? I know you have the networking on Fridays.
Yeah, networking on Friday. We do have some office hours that are coming up in the spring for sure that are available. And then, yeah, one of the things that we are doing a beta test on is a mini mastermind. So it's an 8-week, like just end to end, like how to set up an evergreen business for yourself. And so we'll take you through everything around how to create that strategic freebie, how to generate leads from that, how to build out your email list, and then start selling your signature offer. And if you want to also apply advertising dollars to that to help like just put more people into your funnel, we'll show you how to do those as well.
Yeah, you've been amazing. It has been really great. For me, I'm just really working on focusing on one thing at a time. Like your episode the other day about priorities, and priority is supposed to be one thing. So
One
it's
thing.
like it's trying to stay focused in this busy, busy world, in this noisy world. And
Yes.
it's a challenge, but yeah, I super appreciate this. Is there anything else you would like to cover that we didn't talk about?
Um, I the one thing I would probably say if someone's listening and going, wow, this sounds really great. I don't know, like where should I start? And like you could start by joining the Aligned AF community because it will be a really comprehensive experience. And like Linda's attested to, there's lots of great things in there that you can dive into right away from a self-study standpoint, or join a networking call, or join a lead generation event. But if you're still like, sitting in your corporate desk or in your job, your teacher job or your medical professional job, whatever that is, and you're wondering about if entrepreneurship is for you, you should check out also my quiz that I have. So you can find that on brendarigney.com. It's like a 2-minute quiz and 8 questions, and it will really help sort through like what type of entrepreneur are you? And then there are watch outs to be aware of, like, okay, if you're this type of entrepreneur, you may need these type of systems, these type of tools to help you start up your business. Or if you're this type of entrepreneur, this might be something that will help support you in it. And it just gets the conversation going, gives you some tools on next steps.
That's amazing. What advice would you give someone who wants to build their own community like yours?
Definitely check out the School platform. I'm a huge advocate for School, so SKOOL. It's a fairly new platform, but it's growing really well. And I think there's a lot of people that have built platforms or communities on places like Facebook. And, now they're dealing with algorithms and advertising, and, half their Facebook people don't even see their posts every single day. The beautiful thing about School is that you can get it really up and running in, I want to say, 48 to 72 hours. You can start building membership in there. You can expand on it. You can even build like a sales funnel. So it will, if you're doing things right now on other sort of payment, like courses, anything like that on other platforms, you can just bring it all into the School community. And School really helps support their community hosts. Like they're constantly bringing in new features. They already had like a really great platform to begin with. And then now what they're doing is just creating more lifetime value for all those members that have communities in there. Like they just brought in this new affiliate program. It's super cool that we've been asking for. And they're like, yep, we're building it. And they delivered on it. So I've been a part of other tech platforms where it's like, this isn't working, this isn't working. And you can see like for 5 years, there's been like no traction on getting things made or improved upon. But School is very much like focused on keeping their hosts that have communities on that portal, like thriving, having thriving businesses. So I would definitely check out School, and they have lots of great tools. Or you can come into the Aligned AF community and we'll teach you how to put together a School community. But I would start there.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Tell everybody where they can find you and the podcast and the community.
Sure. Yeah. So you can find me on Instagram. That's where I tend to hang out the most at It's Brenda Rigney. My podcast, as Linda mentioned before, is called The X. It's on Apple, Spotify, and you can also check it out on YouTube. I like to be on YouTube probably more. And then you can find me at brendarigney.com, and the link to the community is on there too.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. This was great.
Thank you for hosting. Great questions today. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're so welcome. Well, I will share all your links in the show notes and we will get that out to everyone.
Awesome.
Yes.